It's like living in an abusive household. You feel you don't know what's going to happen next, what crazy thing is going to happen next, what's going to make you say, what the hell's going on?
When it comes to Hollywood legends, few names command as much respect as Robert De Niro. From Taxi Driver to The Irishman, his career has been a masterclass in talent and dedication. But behind the camera, De Niro has built a reputation for being outspoken, fiercely private, and, at times, unapologetically blunt about people he didn't get along with. While most actors carefully avoid naming enemies, De Niro has let slip his disdain for certain co-stars and industry figures over the years. And the truth is, some of these stories are downright shocking. Today, we're pulling back the curtain to reveal the top 7 actors Robert De Niro reportedly hated the most, and the reasons why. The first name on this list is Mickey Rourke, and their clash has become Hollywood legend. It all goes back to 1987, when both actors starred in the psychological thriller Angel Heart. At the time, Rourke was seen as the next big thing in Hollywood, carrying a dangerous charisma that reminded critics of Marlon Brando. De Niro, already established as one of the greatest actors of his generation, was cast opposite him in a chilling role. From the very beginning, their working relationship was strained. Rourke has openly admitted that De Niro made a point of avoiding him off-camera. According to Rourke, De Niro refused to speak directly to him, even during casual moments on set. Instead, De Niro would only address him in character. Rourke claims that when he tried to strike up a conversation, De Niro brushed him off, saying, "I think it's better if we don't talk." For Rourke, this wasn't just a method-acting choice. It felt like personal rejection. In later interviews, he described De Niro as cold and dismissive, even going as far as to call him a crybaby who was intimidated by his intensity. The bitterness never went away. Decades later, when the press tried to ask Rourke if he and De Niro might ever reconcile, Rourke exploded, saying he would smack him around if they ever crossed paths again. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Insiders claim that De Niro's silence toward Rourke wasn't about ego, it was strategy. De Niro was known for his method acting and often avoided casual relationships with co-stars when playing adversarial roles. In his mind, keeping Rourke at a distance helped create real tension on screen. But whether intentional or not, the tension spilled into real life, and the two men became lifelong enemies. The feud resurfaced in 2019 when Rourke accused De Niro of blocking him from a role in Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. According to Rourke, Scorsese wanted to cast him, but De Niro told the director he refused to work with him. Rourke blasted De Niro publicly, calling him a punk and claiming he held a grudge for over 30 years. De Niro, for his part, has rarely commented directly on the feud. But people close to him say he considers Rourke unpredictable and unprofessional, which is why he keeps his distance. For De Niro, who is known for his quiet professionalism, Rourke's erratic behavior may have crossed a line. What makes this feud so fascinating is how it reflects two very different personalities. De Niro, meticulous and disciplined, versus Rourke, brash and volatile. In many ways, it's not surprising they clashed so fiercely. But the fact that the animosity has lasted decades, and may have cost Rourke a career-changing role, shows just how deep the hatred runs. In the end, the De Niro-Rourke rivalry remains one of Hollywood's most explosive. It wasn't just a clash of egos, but a collision between two acting philosophies and two men who refused to back down. And it set the tone for the rest of this list, proving that when Robert De Niro dislikes someone, it's rarely forgotten. If Mickey Rourke represented raw volatility, then Sylvester Stallone symbolized something else entirely: Hollywood superstardom. Yet even the Italian stallion couldn't escape Robert De Niro's cold shoulder. The friction between De Niro and Stallone dates back decades and is one of those rare rivalries that blended personal egos with professional clashes. Their tension reportedly began in the 1980s, when both men were at the peak of their careers. De Niro had already earned multiple Academy Awards, while Stallone had become a global icon through Rocky and Rambo. Despite their different acting styles, De Niro being the method-driven perfectionist and Stallone being the larger-than-life, action hero, they shared one thing: enormous pride. At industry events, insiders noticed that the two rarely interacted warmly. Stallone, known for his competitive streak, allegedly bristled at the way critics placed De Niro on a higher pedestal as a serious actor, while often dismissing Stallone as a muscle-bound movie star. Meanwhile, De Niro reportedly didn't appreciate Stallone's arrogance and tendency to dominate conversations. Their rivalry became an open secret in Hollywood. The bad blood simmered quietly for years, but it exploded when the two were cast together in the 2013 boxing comedy Grudge Match. On paper, it seemed like a brilliant idea. Pair two aging legends, known for playing boxers, De Niro from Raging Bull and Stallone from Rocky, and let them square off in a film that celebrated their legacies. But behind the scenes, it was a disaster. Crew members later revealed that the atmosphere on set was tense. Stallone, used to being in control of his own films, often butted heads with De Niro, who had no patience for improvisation that disrupted the rhythm of a scene. Stallone reportedly accused De Niro of being aloof and humorless, while De Niro thought Stallone was more interested in flexing his brand than respecting the craft. In interviews, Stallone tried to downplay the tension, but hints of frustration slipped through. He described working with De Niro as challenging, while praising his talent in the same breath, classic coded language for an uneasy collaboration. De Niro, true to form, stayed silent, refusing to feed the media frenzy. But those close to him said he found Stallone exhausting, someone he didn't trust or particularly like. Interestingly, their rivalry wasn't just professional, it also had a personal edge. Stallone has admitted in the past that he felt overshadowed by actors like De Niro and Al Pacino, who received critical acclaim while he fought to be taken seriously. That insecurity may have fueled his animosity, especially when he was face-to-face with De Niro. What makes this feud notable is how it played out publicly. While most of De Niro's grudges are whispered about in Hollywood circles, his clashes with Stallone were visible. During press tours for Grudge Match, the two often looked uncomfortable sitting next to each other, and their body language told a story no words could. Fans noticed the awkwardness, sparking endless speculation about what was happening behind the scenes, and unlike some rivalries that fade with time, this one never healed. Stallone has since admitted he doesn't speak with De Niro, and the two have not worked together again. Grudge Match ended up being a critical and commercial disappointment, which only cemented the notion that these two legends were oil and water, destined never to mix. For De Niro, who carefully chooses his battles, Stallone represented more than just a co-star he didn't like. He embodied the kind of Hollywood ego that De Niro has spent his life avoiding, loud, brash, and obsessed with status. For Stallone, De Niro represented the gatekeepers of serious acting who never gave him the respect he craved. Their mutual disdain serves as a reminder that even the biggest stars in Hollywood aren't immune to grudges. Sometimes the clash of legacies is just too big to ignore, and in the case of De Niro versus Stallone, the tension lingers long after the final bell. Robert De Niro and Dustin Hoffman were once considered kindred spirits, two New York actors, who clawed their way up from theater stages to become Hollywood's most respected performers. Both were Academy Award winners, both hailed for their uncompromising dedication to their craft, and both were part of the same generation of actors who redefined cinema in the 1970s. On paper, they should have been allies. But behind the curtain, their relationship soured, and it became one of De Niro's most surprising feuds. The roots of their conflict lie in their contrasting approaches to acting. De Niro's method style was famously immersive. He would gain or lose massive amounts of weight, live in character for months, and obsess over details to create authenticity. Hoffman, also a method actor, leaned into improvisation, emotional spontaneity, and experimenting on set. While they respected each other's skills, the clash of techniques created friction. They first worked together on the 1997 political satire Wag the Dog, directed by Barry Levinson. The film, which satirized the manipulation of the media by political powers, required sharp chemistry between its leads. But what should have been a collaboration between two titans quickly turned tense. Insiders from the set recall moments when Hoffman's constant improvisation drove De Niro up the wall. Hoffman was known for stretching scenes, tossing out unexpected lines, and forcing his co-stars to react in real time. For some, this was exhilarating. For De Niro, who preferred precision and structure, it felt like chaos. Crew members whispered that De Niro often walked away from takes frustrated, muttering about Hoffman's lack of discipline. The tension became public when interviews promoting the film hinted at their differences. Hoffman, ever the jokester, told stories about De Niro's quiet intensity, calling him difficult to read and too serious. De Niro, in turn, avoided giving Hoffman any public compliments. For fans who expected a bromance between two giants of cinema, the awkward distance was hard to ignore, but the feud didn't end there. Years later, Hoffman reportedly lobbied hard for De Niro to join him in another project, but De Niro refused, saying he didn't want to go through that experience again. The rejection stung, and Hoffman allegedly took it as a personal slight. Their once friendly rapport disintegrated into mutual avoidance, with both men declining opportunities to work together again. What makes this feud fascinating is its subtlety. Unlike De Niro's loud clash with Mickey Rourke or the public awkwardness with Sylvester Stallone, the rift with Hoffman was quieter, but deeper. Two men who were often compared to each other, who shared similar roots and goals, simply couldn't find common ground. It wasn't about ego or competition. It was about incompatible styles. Adding to the tension was the way Hollywood and critics constantly pitted them against each other. In the 1970s and 1980s, film writers often asked, who's the greatest actor of his generation, De Niro or Hoffman? Both men won Oscars. Both anchored some of the era's most iconic films, and both became symbols of serious acting. That constant comparison may have fueled an undercurrent of resentment. Today, their relationship remains distant. Neither openly trashes the other, but neither sings praises either. When asked about his peers, De Niro often mentions Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, or Harvey Keitel, but rarely, if ever, Dustin Hoffman. That silence speaks volumes. The De Niro-Hoffman feud reminds us that even the most talented actors can clash when philosophies collide. Sometimes talent alone isn't enough to bridge the gap, and in this case, two legends of cinema walked away from each other, leaving behind a film that now serves as both a collaboration and a cautionary tale of what happens when acting titans fail to connect. Among all of Robert De Niro's rumored feuds, perhaps the most surprising is his long-standing tension with Richard Gere. Unlike the loud fireworks of Mickey Rourke or the competitive bitterness with Sylvester Stallone, this was a quieter, more personal rivalry, one that lasted for decades, and even shaped the trajectory of Gere's career. The origin of their clash is almost bizarre. In the 1970s, both men were young actors hustling for roles in New York. They were cast together in a film project that never saw completion, but during rehearsals, an infamous incident occurred. According to Gere, the two got into a heated disagreement over something as trivial as food in the car they were sharing. De Niro reportedly snapped after Gere spilled grease from a chicken sandwich, and what started as a petty annoyance escalated into a genuine fight. From that point forward, De Niro allegedly vowed never to work with Gere again. Though the story sounds almost too absurd to be true, the animosity it sparked became very real. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, as both men became household names, they carefully avoided each other. Gere went on to star in romantic hits like An Officer and a Gentleman and Pretty Woman, while De Niro continued to dominate gritty dramas and crime epics. Their paths rarely crossed professionally, and insiders claimed it was no coincidence. Hollywood gossip suggested that Gere often felt looked down upon by De Niro, who represented the serious actor camp of cinema. Gere, meanwhile, leaned more into his image as a heartthrob and leading man, which may have fueled De Niro's disinterest in working with him. Whether rooted in professional jealousy, stylistic differences, or that infamous sandwich incident, the grudge never softened. The feud became part of Hollywood lore, whispered about by casting directors and producers. Allegedly, there were multiple occasions when both actors were considered for the same project, but one would back out if the other was attached. Some even claim Gere lost out on roles in Martin Scorsese films because De Niro, Scorsese's frequent collaborator, refused to be in the same project. While that rumor has never been confirmed, it illustrates just how deeply this rivalry was embedded in industry gossip. Interestingly, Gere himself has occasionally acknowledged the rift. In interviews, he has admitted that De Niro is not someone he has a relationship with, choosing his words carefully, but making it clear there's distance. De Niro, as usual, has stayed quiet, never giving the press any direct ammunition. His silence has only added to the mystery, leaving fans and journalists to piece together the story from scattered clues. What makes the De Niro-Gere feud so unique is how little it has to do with traditional Hollywood clashes. It wasn't about a box office flop, creative disagreements on set, or competition for awards. It was about personality, ego, and perhaps one small incident that snowballed into a lifetime of avoidance. For two men who built careers on their ability to embody complex human emotions, it's ironic that they couldn't resolve their own differences. Now, with both actors older and their prime years behind them, fans sometimes wonder if reconciliation is possible. Could they ever share the screen in a late-career project, setting aside decades of tension? The answer seems unlikely. Both have carved out legacies on their own terms, and neither appears interested in revisiting old grudges. In the end, the feud between Robert De Niro and Richard Gere may never have the explosive headlines of his clashes with Rourke or Stallone. But its quiet persistence over decades shows another side of De Niro, a man who doesn't easily forgive or forget. And for Gere, it's a reminder that even the smallest sparks can ignite a grudge that lasts a lifetime. In Hollywood,